Microphones? Okay.
The March 20th meeting of the Compliance and Amendments Committee is now in session. First item, please.
On the call of the roll. Member Highland.
Here.
Highland present. Member Moss.
Here.
Moss present. Chair Kanata.
Here.
Kanata present. We have a quorum. There are no agenda changes. Next on the agenda is item number 2, approval of the January 30th, 2018 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes.
Anybody have any issues? Motion?
Move to pass.
Seconded.
Any comment on the motion to approve the minutes? Seeing no public comment, can we take it by acclamation?
That motion passes without objection. Next on the agenda is item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none? Next.
Item number 4, file number 18019, update on digital services consolidation in the city and county of San Francisco in regards to websites, upgrades, and developing standards to meet Sunshine Ordinance requirements. We have invited Ms. Crispy to provide information on this matter, and I did try to attempt to convey the task force's concerns regarding uniformity and compliance with the Sunshine Ordinance.
Come up and... Yeah.
Any microphone.
This one's a bit shorter. That's better. Hi.
Hi. So you have a presentation?
I mean, yeah, well, I put together some slides because I wasn't sure what you wanted to know about. So maybe if you ask me some questions, then if it feels like if it feels like the slides I've made work, then I can use them. Or
just an overview on exactly what's being upgraded.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can.
And you can start real quickly, and then maybe people will have questions as we go.
And just before we start, is this something, Victor, that will be in the record, the slideshow?
I will, if you don't mind emailing it to me when you get back.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll just put the slides up and then roughly talk to them, whether we can. Feel free to interject.
I like the yellow color. Very nice.
I thought it was appropriate, right? So my role is Chief Digital Services Officer. I've been with the city for about a year. This is a new position for the city that hasn't been created before, and it's as a consequence of the digital services strategy, which was approved about 2 years ago, I think, in the city. And that strategy was really trying to say, in a kind of modern organization, services should be available to the public online, and they should provide a great user experience for the public so that they can kind of transact with the city and get things done with the city in a modern, easy, quick way, with kind of user needs at the heart of that, rather than like what's happened in the past, which is designing our services around our business processes rather than around the people that use them. So the idea is to try and modernize and kind of bring a user-centered approach to the designing of public services online. And of course, this being 21st century, public services should all be online, right? Currently, the city websites, plural, are on Drupal 7 as a platform, and it serves a purpose, but what we're hearing from lots of people is that it's very confusing, it's difficult to navigate, you can't quite find the services that you need, it's hard to transact, there aren't very many transactional services online. There are actually, we think, we're in the process of figuring this out, but we think there are 400 to 500 services offered by the city. And when I say a service, that's anything from applying for something, reporting something, requesting a service, finding out about something. There's all manner of things that are in there. We think there are about 400 to 500, but like I say, we're currently counting through them. But only about a quarter of them can actually be done online. Most of the time on our website, it's like, find out how to apply for this thing, and then it's like, the instructions are go in person to an office, or download this, at best, download this form, fill it in by hand, and then email a scan to somebody. So it's quite laborious and not really what we think of as digital. So it doesn't make the best use of data. It doesn't work in the best way. So it turns out one of our most popular, just out of interest, you might be interested to learn, our most popular service is getting married, which I think is a nice thing, especially in this building. But there are many other things that people come to our website to do, and some of them are fairly straightforward, and others of them are much more complex. But as I'm sure you're aware, the website is incredibly difficult to navigate, and it's hard to find how to actually do these things, much less do them online. We also know that there are, just on sfgov.org, which is our main kind of like domain, there are about 50,000 web pages, and there are at least as many PDF files as well. And the problem with that is, as I'm sure you're aware, you can't really search PDFs, so it's very hard to find the information that you need if it's all buried in kind of sealed documents that are like obscurely titled. So we're trying to open up some of that as well. We also have a whole bunch of people all across the city who are editing things, but with varying levels of proficiency. And we know that people aren't updating information regularly, because we know that about a quarter of those people haven't logged in the last year. So we know that there's some work to be done on talking to people about the relevance of updating information on a regular basis and making sure content is kept in real time. And we also know that our content is incredibly difficult to read. There's lots of policy jargon in there, there's lots of city jargon in there, and there are also just like unnecessarily long words in there as well. So part of what we're trying to do is instill a sense of best practice that we should really be aiming for 5th grade reading level, and we use various tools to kind of assess the reading level of text on the website. So all of which to say, like, we have some things to address on the website. Oh yeah, we also have, we think it's in the region of 221 different URLs for the city. So these are not just things sfgov.org/something, but we have any amount of kind of permutations of like different configurations of sf.something or sf something or something sf, which is again creates confusion among our users, because they're not quite sure if this is a legitimate city website, if it's affiliated with the city or not, and it's not always clear. So we're trying to kind of make that a bit clearer as well. I won't go through these in detail, but we've spoken to users of our website to understand what their pain points are, what the difficulties are. And when I say users, I'm talking about our residents, businesses, visitors to the city, but also staff members, press and activists who we know use our website to try and find information as well. So we're trying to get a kind of broad spectrum of who's using our website, and also to make sure that we're representing our diverse communities within the city, so that we're not just asking one type of user, we're asking lots of people from all walks of life what their experiences are with the city online. So this is our goal, making things look consistent, making services easy to find, and then also putting those services online and kind of streamlining that in the process, because the problem is a lot of our forms are asking for information that we don't really need to ask for, because we already know it from other times we've asked you for it. And also, like, those forms are kind of being taken out, you know, when a department receives a PDF form, it's then kind of turning into like a fairly lengthy business process, and we think that we might be able to sort of streamline some of those business processes and make them easier, so that the user can get things done faster, and so staff time isn't spent on unnecessary admin, but on real problems. So there is some kind of indications of this happening across government as a whole, and so reference points that we often talk about are cities like Boston, who've started to do this kind of work. Indianapolis is doing some of this work. Also the British government, I would say this, of course, but the British government has done some, really are like the flagship example of digital services done well. And they made one website for all of government in the UK, kind of consolidating multiple different department websites into kind of one streamlined experience for users. And that's the goal. That's what we're aiming for. So you can always visit those sites and check them out and kind of as a comparator to what we're aiming for. And this is also a big project. So this isn't just about making a nice interface or making the website look nice. This is actually about like the architecture of the website and thinking about how we connect between our different services. So we have like lots of systems that we use at the core of the city to power our services, lots of databases, lots of large technology systems that are case management systems, that kind of thing. And we need to work out how we integrate with those so that the website can use data from those systems in real time. So we're not that will help us streamline the process. So it's more than just an interface, making a nice website project. It's actually like fundamentally like re-architecting how we kind of allow users to interact with our services. We're aiming for a kind of like initial sort of version 1 by September. It won't blow anyone's socks off, I don't think, when we come out with it. We're developing this in an agile way, working with a vendor, and some people on my team are working on it as well. And so we're starting small, we're prototyping right now, we're iterating our way through this, we're testing with users, and we're kind of increasing our understanding every day of what this thing needs to do. I think our first version will include start pages for a number of services so we know what people want, what information people want up front before they even start interacting with us. How long will this take? How much will it cost? Where do I go if I have a complaint? Like these kinds of questions are the things people want to know up front. So making sure we're putting that front and center, and that will probably be our first version, will be a number of services kind of with that information up front. But we'll see as things progress. We are trying to engage with stakeholders across the city, but as I'm sure you're aware, the city's big and there are lots of stakeholders, and many people are interested in the website as a kind of entity and how it's going to work. And obviously lots of departments are very used to the idea of them having their own departmental website. And what we're really saying is like it's not really about your department having a website anymore. It's about the city having a website and the services your department offers being really easy to find on that website. So it's a bit of a mental shift in the mental model for departments. So we're spending time engaging with them, and we also have a number of like sub-working groups, if you like, to address specific issues. So there's lots of technical architecture conversations that we're having. We're also engaging with lots of the people who write content for the web across the city and having workshops and trainings and that kind of thing for them. And we're starting to engage with accessibility groups just to make sure that we are, I mean, I don't want us to just be Section 508 compliant. I want us to be like world leading in accessible websites for government. So that I'm trying to set the bar a bit higher than just making sure we're compliant with things, because this city should be aiming that high. So so that's my goal. So engaging with the disability community to make sure that we go above and beyond, thinking about language access ordinance and making sure that we are making things available in all languages, but also that the things we're making available are culturally appropriate as well. I could talk a lot about accessibility, so I won't go into too much depth. All this is to say that we're engaged in lots of activity and we have a team working on this full time. And then if you wanted to see the results of what some of those things are like, then there are some kind of links to prototypey things, and also some of the research we've done about those 400 to 500 services that exist, as well as all the website URLs that we think we have as well. So that's what I have for you. I hope that was an okay overview.
Questions?
I do, but I was wondering if you had stuff from Chair Wolf that you wanted us to ask about.
I don't.
Okay.
Victor, did you send that out?
There's nothing specific.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for it. This is a really good presentation. This is really loud. Under the Sunshine Ordinance, each department in San Francisco is supposed to have a worldwide website. That's the language it uses. Do you think that's currently the case regarding every department in the city?
Yes, I think every department in the city has multiple websites, to be honest.
Okay, and then it says each department shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that its worldwide website is regularly reviewed for timeliness and updated on at least a weekly basis. How are we on that for the entire city?
I don't know is the answer. We don't actually have a way of measuring that. I can tell you, as I said, like how many content editors there are and roughly how many of them have logged in, but there might be multiple content editors in any one department. So we actually don't really have a way of knowing that. So one of the things we're trying to address is what analytics do we need at the back end of our site in order to be able to know those kinds of things. But I would say departments, it varies across departments, and it also varies depending on the content. Some content just doesn't change, right? Because it's like a policy that hasn't been updated, or it's like, a procedure that like this is the way it works and it always has done. Other things do change much more frequently, like news, for example, which like press releases change probably on a daily basis. So I think it's like highly variable is probably what I would say. And I think people update it where they think it's relevant to update it. Could it be more up to date? Yeah, of course.
And when you move to this sort of overall new vision, what happens to the existing version of SFGov?
That's actually something I wanted to ask you guys for input on, because there are a number of options that we could have, and depending on what you think the data retention approach should be is like, up for discussion, I think. In my mind, the departments are responsible for their own data retention. So if they want to keep their existing content, then they can absolutely do that, and we'll help them to maintain an archive of it. Should we have an entire archive of the current website as a kind of snapshot in a moment of time? It seems odd, because we're not going to just flip a switch and go from one complete website approach now to like turn on a switch and there's a whole new website. Like, we're building this incrementally so that we learn as we go. And so I think pieces will start to get filled in, and more the old website will start to kind of say, we can turn off bits of it. But there will be stuff that maybe is useful to keep, and there'll definitely be stuff that is around for a while yet, because we just won't get around to replacing it for a while. So I think we need a kind of nuanced approach to that. I don't know if you have thoughts or opinions on how we should tackle that. I'm open to suggestions.
Carrie, I had a quick question. I know you've only been here a year. Have you had any sunshine training yourself, or do you have a pretty good knowledge of how the ordinance works here in the city?
I'm about halfway through a very lengthy video right now.
Aren't we all?
And even you haven't found a way to fast forward it. Okay, fair enough.
I know, right? Well, you don't want to miss anything.
I didn't say that. Anyhow, well, it sounds like you're on the right track, and the fact that you're aiming. Can we turn the mics down?
Don't have
we can't, so we have to lean back. All right.
Stand back.
I'm just going to move mine up there, and you tell me if you can't hear me.
Posture, how's that? All right. I think the fact that you're aiming above 508 compliance, and you're saying a lot of the things that go lockstep with the Sunshine Ordinance, which is great. So you're on the right page. A couple of the things that it probably wouldn't hurt for us as a body to send you a couple of cliff notes of things that we'd like to see, at least on the landing page of some of these websites, such as a custodian of records is not always identified, and that's useful and required by the charter. And then I always like to have something where, if you fill out a form online to request, an SF government services, at what point does that become a public document? Just a sort of verbiage to say, by the way, when you fill this out, you understand that this is entering the public domain, and this is something that can be searchable, sunshineable by various entities. Something like that would be just thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of questions I had was how is this website going to handle data that's public? And so I'm envisioning just somebody going into the planning department and pulling permits to do work, and a neighbor a year down the road, wants to see how this came about and everything. Is that going to be searchable? Is a person going to be able to get public records off of this site? Things like that.
Yeah, all good questions I don't have the answer to, but I think what I'd love to do, right, to be honest, is work with you or a Sunshine delegate or however we want to structure this to start to work out what are some of those use cases, what are the problems that we want to solve from a Sunshine perspective, and make sure that that's woven into how we're addressing this. So I can't answer your question off the top of my head with an approach, but I can say I'm really open to working with you to make sure that we meet the requirements, but again, go above and beyond.
It's in chapter 36 of the video. You haven't got there yet.
I knew it.
And they don't let you go faster than they want.
But actually, one of the things that we have in place, and as Member Moss said, Chair Wolf is pretty passionate about, is the technology subcommittee, which has been active from time to time, ad hoc basis. I think that's the body, that's the subcommittee that probably should work with you most closely going forward. I'm not sure who technically that is or is on it.
I'm the chair, but it's not happening yet before I leave. So.
The outgoing chair is right here, unfortunately. So we're actually in a state of transition ourselves. This is our next month. We're all up. Most of us are up for re-election. So that chair will be reappointed probably by May, possibly June. Hopefully that gives us enough time to connect with you and keep channeling these kind of questions through. But I love what you're doing. I think it's definitely on the right line. I've been confused. There was a time when we were paying parking tickets about 2 years ago, and the site changed. Do you guys remember that? And I thought, oh, great, I'm off the hook. But eventually it caught up with you. But yeah, they were moving different systems or something. But we definitely need some more transparency and efficiency.
To address your earlier question about, I think I had kind of raised it and then you'd asked and we didn't answer it. And this isn't direction from the task force, but just my general thoughts on things is that I think that definitely for the first few years or so, it is helpful to have the complete archive of what the site looked like. There are a lot of people in the city who get very used to how things work, and they know where their links are for certain things, and maybe these are historical records they have, and just to ease people over to have that version. But also, I think it would be very useful to have that in a way that if somebody puts in a request for the entire former website of the city of San Francisco, they should be able to get that. I'm not sure what the size is of the entire. Do you have any idea of how big the current web presence of the city is? Well,
if you're talking about the main sfgov.org, which is one of those 200 URLs that I mentioned, and that's the one that has 50,000 pages.
Let's do that one, yeah.
Plus 50,000 PDFs, then that would be the size of it. 50,000. I don't know how much that is in terms of memory size, but it also costs us money to keep it up. So I think I'd want us to think about a limitation on that, how long are we going to continue to pay?
No matter what, it would be great if that, even if you took it offline, if that version lived somewhere, and so somebody said, 2 years later, I would like this page from the website from 2 years ago, that would be a request that you could honor by going and looking and saying, this is what the website looked like, we have it stored somewhere. Similar the way the Internet Archive might archive something, but I don't think people should be going to the Internet Archive to necessarily get what would be a public record.
What would you think is a reasonable time period? 2 years worth?
It's whatever the retention period is anyways, right? You don't it just because it's on a website doesn't mean you get to make it disappear. If it was on paper, you would need to hold on to it for 5 years, So
there's a sunshine law around that, which I think is what Member Moss is driving at.
I guess when somebody comes to the website, when a content editor updates content on the website now, they're basically replacing content. So regardless of how frequently that's happening, on a daily basis, content on the website is changing.
And there's no versions of it that continue to exist?
I think we can kind of undo changes, but there's not really set milestones of archives if you sort of the whole thing. It's just so big and honestly, there's a lot of information on there.
I would say that so something for me is that 30 years from now, when your successor wants to do a history of what the web looked like in San Francisco, they should be able to go back and say, this is what the website looked like, and this was what the change looked like. And rather than having this sort of ephemeral version of, I mean, it's like if you imagine that City Hall was constantly changing and you would never had a picture of what City Hall looked like, that actually like removes a big chunk of history, I would say. Like to be able, I mean, the digital presence is like a digital City Hall, and that people should be able to say, well, back in, 2018, we had all this junk on our website, and now in the year 2040, it's just a virtual reality system that we walk around. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like having that kind of history, I think, is important to preserve. And that's just my opinion. That's not the opinion of the task force, but just my opinion. The only other thing that I would point out to you is, as you're going through your Sunshine Ordinance training, is to look at 6721-1, which is something specifically regarding the policy regarding use and purchase of computer systems. And there are kind of 3 considerations that need to be made when adopting a new computer system. And, one of them is pretty simple. It's like you have to be able to segregate, records that are public from records that should not be public. You need to have a system that allows for records to be reproduced in a digital copy. And then finally, they do like people to go through, it says, implementing a system that permits making records available through the largest nonprofit, non-proprietary public computer network, consistent with the requirements of the security information. So this is kind of like an open source public records kind of recommendation. And I would take a look at that. The only other personal wish list is that I think websites have moved towards not making their pages printable, and I would say that is on my general wish list for every website out there, that if you hit, Control P and it goes to your printer, you should actually get a printout of what you're seeing, and not some text and then missing a bunch of text and then 25 pages of garbage at the bottom. That's not ideal for me. So, those are my thoughts on that. I don't have anything else beyond that.
Thank you for coming and doing this. And as Member Highland said, once we get reset up after the reappointment process, I think the tech committee is the place for you and them to work together to get more into this, and so that what you create helps the people using it and helps the people requesting public data.
So I'm wondering, through the chair, to Victor, can we continue this or create a file for the incoming technology
chair? We can just
chair?
continue this to the call of the chair.
Okay.
And we can just take up this matter when there's questions from either side. If you have something that you want to bring to us, just let us know. We'll schedule it. And the other way also.
I'd like this also to hit the technology chair's list, though, when that person is appointed, so it doesn't just languish in this committee. So if there's a way you can, because who knows whether you'll be with us in the next iteration. Will you? You're on the record now. Anyhow, you see where I'm getting with this. I just want to kind of keep it alive and keep the back channels open, so to speak. But that was really excellent presentation, and I think you're definitely in the right direction. And last question, where in England are you from?
Well, I've lived in London for the last 15 years, and before
nice.
that, just the southeast. So.
Oh, very good. I went to school there for a long time.
Oh, cool. Whereabouts?
In Surrey, Epsom.
Yeah. Oh, in Epsom. Oh,
but
nice.
the accent's gone.
After
a few pints, it comes out. But yeah.
Nice one, mate.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
All right.
Any public comment?
Oh, public comment on the presentation. Seeing none. Next.
Motion to continue?
Motion to continue?
Second.
Okay, by acclamation, we're fine.
Sure.
Okay.
Matters continue to the call of the chair.
Next item, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Next on the agenda is item number 5, file number 17094, hearing on the status of the order of determination. Complaint filed by Michael Petrellis against President London Breed for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25. On February 27, 2018, the task force heard the matter and found a violation of Section 67.21E and 67.25. The matter was referred to the Compliance Amendments Committee and was requested that the respondent attend the meeting as required by Administrative Code Section 6721E to explain the basis for the decision to withhold the requested record. Mr. Petrellis did contact me and let me know he could not attend today's meeting, but wanted us to move forward with the hearing. I did send a notice to the respondent and provided a reminder email in addition to the original notice of hearing.
Okay. And Mr. Petrellis I'm assuming, did not say that he got anything from them.
He
Yes.
did not make any indications, no.
And
Did he say he didn't get anything, or did he not?
He made no reference to it at all.
That's problematic.
well, no, because I believe if he contacted Victor to say he couldn't make it, he would have said if he received data. And we're sure, because I know you sent these to Supervisor Breed's office via email.
Via email, and I sent a copy to each of her aides also.
Okay, so let's assume they received this. Now, this is what, the fourth? Is this the fourth meeting on this? Or definitely at least the third, but it might be the fourth meeting.
This is, I was looking this up earlier, and sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Go ahead.
No. So this is regardless of meetings, this is the second, so this is the fourth meeting. I think that this is the fourth or fifth, but this is the second complaint on the same public records request or similar language of the public records request. But looking back, there is a history of this also coming up, I think, in 2015, where there was a series of complaints where Supervisor Breed also did not send people and was cited for the same issue.
Right.
So just coloring this is like this is something that is a pattern of practice rather than an isolated incident at this point.
I agree.
And do you remember what happened in 2015? Where did it get to?
I mean, it's just an order of determination based on the records we have. I don't see anything beyond that.
And the reason this is here was to try to ensure that Mr. Petrellis got his data, got his records. I mean, it seems to me that Supervisor Breed's office really just doesn't care about this. And I find that problematic. I mean, so...
It kind of reminds me of a case that we had before you guys joined, where, in fact, the very first thing that Chair Wolf and I had to do was to send it, Section 34, for Eric Marr, who was outgoing supervisor at the time. And I think this is no different in my mind.
Yeah. And we do have the option now to send it to ethics without it being willful, but I agree. I mean, I can't see anything else except a decision being made over and over and over again for two things. Let's not give them let's not provide the records, and let's not even show up.
So my thought is, so we did have a vote on the Ethics Commission, the willful violation, and that vote failed. However, the Sunshine Ordinance is very clear about what we need to do in this situation. It says if the custodian refuses or fails to comply with any such order within 5 days, the Sunshine Task Force shall, the word is shall, not may, not should, not can, it is shall, notify the district attorney or the attorney general, who may take whatever measures she or he deems necessary to ensure compliance with the provisions of the with the provisions of this ordinance. So to me, this reads like that this committee's next step should be to send our order of determination to either, at our discretion, the district attorney or the attorney general, and ask them to put this ball in their court to ensure compliance. And it says shall, so I don't know what option we have other than to do
Member Mouse, looking at the record here, I see the no was by Member Fisher. Was there any discussion as to why? I wasn't at that meeting, so...
If I recall, Member Fisher did not believe it rose. So we ended up having a discussion. My original motion included both in the same motion. She indicated that she was going to vote no, and so we split the motion. I felt it was important that we still take a vote on it.
Okay.
So we split it into two separate votes. The violation passed. The Ethics Commission referral failed.
Got it.
And so we are in a position where we need to figure out another means of compliance. I don't feel comfortable going back and having another vote on willful compliance. Certainly we could see if we could send this to the Ethics Commission for compliance, but the ordinance does not say to do that. The ordinance says district attorney or attorney general. So that's what I feel like is appropriate.
And so my question would be, does this committee have the authority to send it up, or does the full task force have to send it? Member Highland,
Typically, my experience is that it'd be the full task force, but maybe the clerk would...
Yes, I would believe we would send it back to the full task force with a recommendation to refer it to the Attorney General or the...
But just to be clear, though, what was the instructions to us on this? Because it was sent back to compliance and amendments, and it seems like we'd be going through a bunch of circles if they send it to compliance and amendments, and all we do is make a recommendation that goes right back to the full task force, when we could have just we just could not have a compliance and amendments committee. We could just have an amendments committee.
I believe that it was their desire to give them one more chance to show up.
I think so. I think because the way I'm reading it on the agenda, it was referred to compliance and amendments, and it was requested that the respondent attend the meeting as required by Administrative Code, Section 6721E, to explain the basis for the decision to withhold requested records. Obviously, they can't do that because they're not here. So as much as I would love to just send it, I think we should send it back to the full committee with the recommendation. What was the paragraph?
It is to notify the district attorney or the attorney general.
And what is that, 67?
It's 6721E.
Okay.
So I would word it along the lines of, based on the full task force recommendation to give the, defendant one more chance to appear. The Compliance Amendments Committee would like to report no such appearance was made, and our recommendation is, just to kind of give the full frame. And I'm wondering if we can tack on the case number from 2 years ago to underscore.
Oh, there's like 5 of them from 2 years
Let's
ago.
do it. Get that noted in our recommendation back to them, and just have the history there, and just so that we're not taking this lightly. This is not a one-off situation. So it's a 3-part recommendation. I think it's pretty strong, and I think that might get the votes that it needs.
I mean, ultimately, I don't even know if under the ordinance we can vote no on it, because it does say shall. So, I mean, we can put it there, but I mean.
Sometimes Member Fisher will, so I like to, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure, it does say shall, though.
Yeah.
I would also want to see in a motion that we strongly urge Chair Wolf to schedule this for the April hearing, that this get front-loaded as something that we need to deal with, and we can't let this languish another 2-3 months.
Yeah, it'll
I
disappear.
agree.
I can deal with that.
What's that?
I can take care of that.
Okay.
So we should get the language in about shall and going to the, the Attorney General, et cetera. The fact that we recorded the fact that no appearance, and we're tagging on the 5 other cases. If you can look those up, Victor.
I will
Yeah.
just sub-reference them.
Just by numbers.
Yeah, it's the order of determinations for 2015. If you go in there and you put in, President London Breed, it's pretty obvious because, to be honest, let's see, it seems like it's one case that's 2 parts. It's like a 15029-1 and a 1509-2. And then I think also you did 15060 and 15060-2, and then a 15067. And they all seem to have the same, they're not the same request, but they're the same, ultimately they're kind of the same filings, or it's either a violation of a IDR, or it's a IDR and a failing to appear.
Failing to appear.
But I would take a look at those, and I would include those. I should notice that they're all also Michael Petrellis cases as well. So that's to help you find them.
We also have another case that's similar to this. open.
Member Wolf.
Yeah, the Member Wolf case, which is the one from 2017, which I can give you that number right now if it helps.
It's
That-
okay. I can find it.
It's just for the record. It's
Okay.
17-018.
So what's the wording? Is there
I think
somebody proposing the motion?
All right, so I will move to. So I'm going to try to hold on. Let me just capsule it in my head.
Yeah.
So, the motion is to refer this back to the Sunshine Task Force with the recommendation that this complaint, bundled with the earlier one from 2017 as well as the ones from 2015, to be forwarded to the district attorney or the attorney general as the Sunshine Task Force is required to under 6721E.
quote the language shall.
And I can just say, I mean, should I just read it out again, or do you, I mean, if the custodian refuses or fails to comply with such orders within 5 days, the Sunshine Task Force shall notify the district attorney or the attorney general, who may take whatever measures she or he deems necessary to ensure compliance with the provisions of this ordinance. Do we have a preference on, my preference is the district attorney on this. Like, if we were to have a motion on this today, I would say we should send this to the district attorney and not the attorney general's office, just because if it was just a CPRA issue, I would say, okay, the attorney general is suited to do with the CPRA, but because it's the Sunshine Ordinance, I think the district attorney, since they are,
Fine.
So can we adjust that to say that the recommendation is to send it to the district attorney? Anyway, that's my motion. If somebody needs to second it, or if you have more questions, Victor.
Just want to add the fact that we noticed that the defendant once again was not present at this meeting, and because of everything else you said.
Right. Okay, do we have a second?
Second. Or do you accept that?
Yep.
Yeah, I accept that.
So moved by Member Moss, seconded by Member Highland.
Yep.
Any public comment on the motion? Seeing none. Let's have a voice vote on this one, Victor.
On the motion, Member Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. Chair Kanada.
Aye.
Kanada, aye. The motion passes.
Okay, next item.
Next on the agenda is item number 6, file number 18006. Complaint filed by John Votruba against Director Tom Hugh, Department of Building Inspection, for allegedly violating Administrative Code, Section 67.21, by failing to respond to a public works request in a timely and or complete manner.
Okay, both parties here. Mr. Votruba, come on up. You have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you.
your
Good
case.
afternoon, gentlemen. I am the owner of 218 Union Street, and we have been in opposition to 280 Union Street, which is an adjoining building over several projects and over a period of several years. We think those projects and the results would have been quite different if the building plans for 280 to 286 had been available for all parties in the interests of transparency and openness. Now, what I thought I would do briefly, I don't want to spend a lot of time going through a lot of the material in the packet, but I do want to address the Deputy City Attorney's questions. I think this may be, and save you the trouble of asking them, which is on page 44. I don't know if you have the packet in front of you. If you don't, I can read the questions that he suggests, and I will try to answer them. His memorandum is what I'm addressing. And he suggests that questions that might assist in determining facts are, on page 44, using Victor Young's numbering on this, can the complainant provide a copy of the original public records request he sent to DBI? That's the first question. Second, did the complainant eventually receive copies of the desired records? On the first question, or on the second question, the answer is no, absolutely not. And on the first question, that answer is mixed. And I'll go in to explain exactly what that means. Because we are in opposition, it is almost a futile act to ask the owner to supply its building records. The reason being is that there would reveal a lot of unpermitted construction that went on, and it would be a benefit to me, but not a benefit to the owner. And so obviously they would never, under any circumstance, grant me the opportunity to open up their plans. Secondly, you have the same issue with the architect, and it really doesn't matter about the architect, because if it takes both people, both the architect and the owner, to grant the permission, and you only have one, that it doesn't matter if you have the other or not. Now, what we did in terms of options is we went to the Records Department on the 4th floor of the building department, and they advised us, I'm talking about, when I say us, I'm talking about the owners of my building, that you should go to the building department itself and speak with the owners, with the members of the department, because they have the plans and they can get the plans, and they can do it quickly and within 3 or 4 days. Now, once again, I don't know if you do have the packet, but I have what I wanted to do is, in terms of backup information on this kind of request, I have a series of emails, and they're on, again, using Mr. Young's numbering system, 143 to 146 in the packet. And if you start with 146 and work backwards up to 143, it's a period of 8 days in which we had worked diligently to try to work with the building department who had the plans and were unable to get them. In addition to our asking for these to work, what we wanted to do is work with the building department, sit down with them, the Department of Building Inspection, and talk about the different issues that were involved in these plans. But when it turns out to find out who has the plans, who doesn't have the plans, it was a merry-go-round. In other words, they would say one person would have them, and then he didn't have them. And, in addition to that, we had...
Was that the 5 minutes?
No, that's 30 seconds.
I'm sorry.
Okay. In addition to that, we had the planning department asking us if we would get the building department to send over to the planning department those plans so that they could work with them too, because we had a hearing coming up before the Historic Preservation Commission on this, just as we do now on the current situation. So, and then of course we had...
So wrap it up.
Yeah. And then of course that's basically it. If you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. We'll let the respondent come up and then we'll have
Okay,
questions.
fine.
Thank you. Respondent, please. Okay, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm William Strawn. I'm the Public Affairs Manager at the Department of Building Inspection. Upon receiving this complaint, I did speak with our Records Department about Mr. Vitruba's request for a hard copy of the plans. I sent along to Mr. Young, and you probably have seen, there is in the State Health and Safety Code, Section 19851, that makes it very clear why plans are considered copyrighted by the architect. And that's why the state law basically says if somebody wants duplication of building plans for a building they do not own, as is the case in this situation, the only way you can get that is to go through a process at our Records Management Division, which I believe Mr. Vitruba has been apprised of. You fill out a form, you have approximately 30 days to obtain the permission of both the owner and or the architect of record, at the end of which time, if there's no response, then you can get a copy. The Records Department, in one of the pages submitted, makes it very clear that the only duplication of plan request that has been submitted to us was for 218 Union Street, which is, I believe, Mr. Vitruba's property. There is no request for a duplication of 280 Union, which is this adjacent building that he was just referring to. The point is we do have a process for obtaining this. I believe Mr. Vitruba is aware of that process. As far as I know, he has not apprised himself of that, but the building department does not make available plans, copies of plans of another property to another owner because of a request for public information, since it is copyrighted and protected by the state law. So I would say that we have been responsive to the request, and we've made it very clear why we cannot provide him with the documents that he's requested. Any questions?
Questions?
I had a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know your department as well as maybe I should. But when someone builds something near you, those plans are circulated to a radius, immediate neighbors. Is that correct? And in which case, that is a copy of the plans. Is that right?
Well, you are very definitely welcome to come in and view the plans within the records department.
Right.
The state law prohibition is that you may not duplicate them without this permission.
Okay. What I was
My
referring to
record
is
shows that actually Mr. Vitruber was last in the department requesting or looking at 280 October 3rd of 2014.
Okay. But no, my question was, I think it's called a
notification.
Yeah, in the notification, you do get a copy of those plans, do you not?
I think it depends on the scope and scale of the project, but yes, in some instances, that is true. There is a notification that plans are available to come and look at. I don't believe they actually circulate the plans, again, because
they do.
So, yeah, my question to, I guess, either party, did this go through the planning department, these plans?
Yes, I suppose it would.
Because if the planning, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that if the planning department has the plans, it's public record. You can request those from the planning department. So, give us some more information, I guess.
Dan Laurie, DBI. When there's a vertical horizontal addition, then there's notification for the surrounding areas. If there's a remodel within the existing building, there's no notification. When they do a notification for the surrounding area, it's normally in a site permit there, which is the basic concept of what's going to happen. It's usually a vertical or horizontal addition. It shows the size and the location of the building. It's not a detailed plan of the remodel itself.
Like elevation, et cetera, whatever. Yeah, okay. That's what I was referring to. So, and I don't know the level of detail of what Mr. Vitruba is looking for, but it seems to me that that's in direct contradiction to the statement that you made earlier that you don't reprint those plans. That's why
we're not allowed to do that by the state law, but we have viewing. He's welcome to come to the fourth floor and view the permits that are on the microfilm.
All right, I had a question for Mr. Vitruba, if you could approach. Yeah. So
You mentioned the planning department. The planning department does have its own file, and we actually went to find it, and by that we went into the planning department and made a request, and the request came back said couldn't find the file.
And
so that was our second opportunity.
When did you go to the planning department?
When did I do that?
Yeah, how far back?
Most recently, about 2 months ago.
I know remember the case we had where they had an issue about plans not being online and...
The system, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that should have been online that wasn't.
Yeah, so I don't know if they might...
I think that was corrected, though, about 6 months ago, if I remember.
See, the difficulty is if you can't get the owner to give consent, those plans remain buried, and nobody ever gets to see them. And that's exactly what we want to have open up, so that we can see what's been properly permitted and what hasn't, and it would make a very big difference in terms of transparency.
So what you're saying is that you've been to the planning department, to DBI, to whatnot, gone in, sat down, looked at these plans, but have not been able to find them?
Not the planning department. The plans are on file at the building department on the fourth floor.
Okay.
I have looked at the microfilm. Yes, I've been there several times and put a lot of hours into it, and have found many things that would have been helpful for everybody, including the commissioners of various to see exactly what went on and what didn't go on. It's just a travesty, actually, and it went on under the nose of the building department inspection.
So when you looked at the plans,
yes,
did you find everything you were looking for? I mean, I'm sort of confused. I mean, if they say there's an ordinance that says they can't duplicate without the permission of the owner, but you can go look at the plans, if you look at the plans, does that not give you the information you need?
It does, but it doesn't give me the support I need to present it to as a proof of fact before a commission. It was just my word as to what I'm saying. I can vouch for what I see, but I know what I saw, and I needed the plans to show that.
But
what I found specifically in this particular instance is that there was lot line windows that were completely marked out of the plans that should never have been installed, and yet they were installed illegally. And this never came out to any commission because the building department would say, "Oh, it's so fine. We had an inspector that looked at it, and everything worked out." But I have the facts to prove the opposite, and so that's my problem.
Member Moss, any questions?
No, I mean, this seems like a complicated thing that it does seem to be their state law getting in the way of it, and I'm not necessarily sure whether we have the ability to override that, even though this whole thing seems to be hard to wrap your head around and also counterintuitive. Like, if the document's sitting there, why can't they give a copy of it? And there seems to be this huge process for going through it. So it may actually be outside of what we can touch. And it actually, frankly, it might not be in our jurisdiction or not. And so I'd want some advice from DCA COLA about this matter.
As for jurisdiction, DBI is a city of the department.
So it is jurisdiction, but we may not be able to declare them public records or not, is what I'm saying, is that they may or they may not be within the jurisdiction of the Sunshine Ordinance in terms of it's a complicated issue because
they sound like they're public records because the public's allowed to go in and view them.
Yes, but if there are already restrictions specific to those records in the law. So, like, for example, one thing that comes up outside of the Sunshine Ordinance is like voter rolls, right? So, like, voter rolls are not necessarily open to the public, but if you are a journalist or you're a political campaign or you're any number of things, you can get a copy of them, but you're restricted on what you can use them for. Okay. What you can't do with like normal public records, you can't put restrictions on what somebody can do. I can post them on the website, I can sell them, I can do whatever, but with like voter records, it's like a very specific thing. So it's like, are they public records? Are they not? Are there special rules for them? Are there not special rules for them? And it seems like where we are with this. Yeah. And I think I would have a lot of questions from DCA Cole.
Yeah, Mr. Vitruba, if you could approach again. You mentioned that you wanted to get this information and present it to another commission or another body. What did you have in mind? If you're able to get this information?
What I need is to be able to copy certain sections of the plans, not all of the plans.
Right.
To be able to certify that these are, take photographs of. I can do that I'd be glad to do that under the auspices of the building department. If somebody's sitting there at the building department with me, that'd be perfectly okay. So that we're not in violation of any problem with the architect's concern that we're trying to steal a copyright, which is obviously not what we're doing, but we're trying to show what we need to do. We have a hearing coming up right now with the Preservation, the Commission, in which I would like to be able to establish that these plans are faulty and they weren't pursued.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could just reference them.
I have a question for DBI. Do the Historic Preservation or Planning Commission, do the commissioners have access to these plans in their file? Because it seems to me that if this goes to the Planning Commission or the Historic Preservation Commission, before a commissioner can make a decision on it, they would have to see the plans.
Well, I cannot speak for the Planning Commission since I work for the building department. I suppose that's a fair question to put to them. Logic would say, of course, they could see them. That still doesn't respond to the state law issues that your member pointed out, that we're not talking about not making it available. I'd be happy to hand the plans over to Mr. Vitruba anytime. The stipulation is he may not copy them. He may not photograph them because of this copyright law.
Right.
Obviously, DBI didn't write the copyright law.
Right. I understand that. What I'm getting at to try to have the needs met is that if we knew that the commissioners had access to the plans in the package, Mr. Vitruba can then go and look at the plans, mark down all this, whatever you want to call them, violations, whatever they are, and cite those, and then the commissioners have the plans in front of them, and they can verify what you're saying. So,
Yeah, I think what we can offer you, Mr. Vitruba, is a two-part thing. I think, one, we might make a motion to continue this and have our own DCA take a look at this state law versus what we think is a sunshine power to allow you to get a copy of those documents. That may not meet your requests in time, but it sounds like, I don't know, maybe you could creatively address these records in your brief with your next hearing and say, I've seen it, I know what's in it, and tell them to tell their clerk to get it for them, which I think they probably can, and you can have a discussion about it. And then whether they choose to bring it up or refer to it in the commission is their choice. I mean, that's all I can think of at this point.
I mean, no matter, if what we're here to do, with the purpose of this hearing is for us to determine if all the information is available and then send it up to the full task force. And I don't know when it would be on the full task force agenda, but when is the preservation meeting?
Scheduled. It's been sort of it's going to be. But
Okay, but do you know, do they meet regularly, or is this an ad hoc
I think it
meetings?
depends on both parties.
Yeah.
So the planning department has to talk to them
Yeah,
and talk to me.
I would suggest going and viewing all the information and making notes and contacting the preservation commissioners and asking them if they have access to these records and in order to verify your claims.
I think that's a useful suggestion. The only thing that concerns me is that the commissions don't normally go out and get and ask for their own set of plans. They rely on what's presented to them by the planning department, and then if there's any opposition, like myself, to something or
Right.
support, I'm the one that has to present.
Right, but
I'm the one that has to
What you
present
could
that.
do is you could in advance of your hearing, you could send a list of questions referring to these specific plans and the pages that you want to discuss. So you're already putting it out there that you have detailed knowledge of these specifics, and you're looking for answers to these questions. If you get that into the packet, that might prompt the clerk to get those records for the commissioners. Maybe
And
I don't know.
would think if it's the Planning Commission or the Historic Preservation Commission, if there's an item on their agenda to take action on this issue, they need to have all the information to be able to take action.
That's right. I agree. Let me just give you one example of one problem here. Say I do that. Let's say I present this information that I saw on the microfilm. What will happen is the chief building inspector, Patrick O'Riordan, will come in with a piece of paper. And this piece of paper will say that the building, 246, has been approved, and they'll buy that. They will accept that, and so that my opportunity to present the opposition is not there. And this has happened time after time. And so that's why I'm asking for your assistance. I realize that you may not have all the answers, but I appreciate your thinking about it and researching it. By the way, I'd appreciate it, however you come down on this, I would appreciate a letter from you or something to just provide your opinion to me about it, how you came down on your decision. That'll be useful to me, because if I want to take any further steps, I can do that with that.
Right, and that when the full task force, if the full task force hears it, there will be an order of determination, which you will definitely receive.
Yeah, I think probably as a first step, though, as Member Moss suggested, we'll probably bump this to our DCA to give us feedback on it, maybe have it come back here, and then send it to the full task force. I don't know if that slows the process down.
Yeah, that'll slow it down.
It's just with the change of membership, I
Yeah.
would like to get it on the April meeting
Okay.
of the full
Why
task force.
don't we do this? Why don't we
Motion to.
I mean, I think we have all the information except for how this statute relates to sunshine.
Yeah, in all my years on Sunshine, I've never heard of a statute limiting sunshine on what's an otherwise public
So
document.
I would think that we could refer it up to the task force, saying that we have all the information, but we want DCA Cola's opinion on this state statute regarding records that, well, we wrote this, but seemingly are public, because you can go in and view these records. So they're seemingly public, but they can't be copied.
Yeah, because the 67, I'm not sure what the code is, but says, for a price of 10 cents or et cetera, copies, et cetera, et cetera, et
Public
cetera.
records, correct.
Public records, so that's
Yeah, so-
explicitly addressed in the code. So maybe we can reference that.
So the motion would be to refer this up to the full task force, looking for the advice of DCA Cola on what's the statute that was cited?
Do you have a specific statute?
Yeah, it's in here. If you have it there, that would help. I know it's in the packet.
Yes, I'm sure it's in the packet. I just want to get it from my notes. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, so there's no public here. Everybody's involved, so there's no public comment. So let's take a vote on
And to also find that the task force
has jurisdiction and that the records are seemingly public,
Yeah.
since you can view them.
Would you like to take a vote on that motion?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I did not catch who made that motion.
I think member. Okay, I made the motion then.
Is there a second?
Second.
On that motion, Member Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. Chair Kanata.
Aye.
Kanata, aye. The motion passes. And just to ask the parties, if Chair Wolf of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agrees, would you be available for hearing on April the 4th at 4 o'clock? But it probably will not occur exactly at 4. Yes. That's the next task force meeting. Okay, a notice will be provided next day or two, but if you don't get it, please give me a call.
Mr. Vetruba, just, if I were you, I would go back to the planning department and see if they have the records. I don't know how, they definitely had an issue with their online system for a while, that people called in for records and they were told there were no records, and then when the records were found, they said, oh yeah, we had an issue with our online system, that's why we couldn't find the records before. So I would just go back.
And what's that young lady's name that's always in front of us?
Christine Silva.
Christine Silva.
Christine Silva works in the planning department, and she
Pretty helpful.
represents them at the full task force meeting.
Okay, thank
regularly.
you. I will try to find out if we can find, if they've had any success
Yep.
in recovering, but I'm not holding my breath.
Okay, well, good luck. All right, next on the agenda.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item 7, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items.
Anybody have anything?
No.
Next on the agenda is item 8, adjournment.
Is this our last subcommittee meeting? It might be.
Of this term, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because the next one, well, who knows if it's a carryover, right? Because it would be May.
Yeah. Well, it was great. It was great being on this committee with you folks.
It was.
Yeah.
So I'd like to sign off in honor to Member Moss.
Yeah.
I believe there is a process that needs to be followed for that, so I would advise against doing that. But I appreciate
Overruled.
I appreciate the sentiment. But
All right,
All right.
meeting adjourned.
Thanks.